Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to be showing you how to install Drupal using Composer, configure it, and optimize its performance to run as smoothly as possible on Mac. We have two options to choose from, using Composer directly on the host machine or within a container. If you already have Composer installed locally, I'll assume you are familiar with its usage and thus will proceed with the container approach. To do so, let me make a few adjustments. Let's create our Drupal installation root folder. I'm going to be using doc root. And let's adjust one thing in the Docker Compose file. I'm gonna change Nginx server root. So it's gonna be doc root instead of default web. Yeah, the mount is fine. Let's go back. And we have to change this as well. So now let's bring our project up. So it's up and we can connect to the shell. So make shell. And now we can create our project using a composer. But let's do this in one specific way. Let's create composer JSON file, but without installing all the dependencies. For that, I'm gonna use no install option. So composer, create project, no install, Drupal, recommended project, and the name of the project. In our case, it's Drupal Flow. Drupal. And now we have our Drupal Flow folder here with the Composer JSON and Composer log file. At the moment, we do not need Composer log. And I'm gonna move this into the root of our project. And I do not need this Drupal Flow folder anymore. Let's open this Composer JSON file. And here we have some default stuff we are about to change. First of all, we're going to change the name. It's going to be Drupal Flow IT 101 explained. Okay, description. Tutorial project. Okay, and here basically we have all default preset configurations for the Composer installation. Let's clean it up a bit. Okay, good. So we have to change this web folder to doc root, such as we are going to be using this. Nice. And we are not going to be using this section at all. Oh, and of course, web root to this. Okay, good. Now let's add few tweaks to our Composer JSON. Basically, I'm gonna add few modules, and of course it's gonna be devel. So Composer install with no update, just not to run installation at the moment. Oh, sorry. It's Composer require. Composer require no update. Yep. And one more. Tweak X debug to be able using breakpoints inside templates. Let's take a look. Yep, devel X debug. And now we can install it. But for that, let's use another approach. We have a directive here for Composer. Yep. So we can do this. Make Composer install. And let me check one thing. Yeah, I have changed it. And now it's installing our project. It is done, and we see one new folder, vendor. Composer utilizes the vendor folder to store all the dependencies like libraries, packages, and frameworks required by our project. So this is it, and we see that we have all the Drupal files inside of our doc root folder. Here we have our core modules folder. It's only contrib here, but in the future we'll create, actually why in the future? Let's create one more custom, because we're gonna add there some custom modules. Profiles. So sites, that's a folder we are gonna talk about a bit later. Themes, and the same, we do not have any here, but I'm gonna add custom, because we are gonna create our own theme in the future videos. So let's try access it from the browser. And here we are, default installation flow. So English, yep. Standard. Okay. Database credentials, we have them in the env file. So db name Drupal flow, username and password Drupal, host. Host is our, where is it? Is our service name, which is MariaDB. Yep, that's correct. And the final step, site name, Drupal flow tutorial, ID 101 explained at drupalflow.com. This email doesn't actually matter because we're gonna use our local SMTP server, Mailhawk. So we're gonna intercept all the email activities. So it's basically a dummy name. So username, this one, password doesn't matter. The same. Doesn't matter. Nope. We're gonna manage our dependencies via Composer JSON. because whenever we need update something, we have to test it before we can actually release it. That's why we're going to do it manually. So save. And here we are, our locally installed Drupal. So now we can enable our modules that have been installed with Composer. We can do that from the user interface, and Devil, for example. And as you can see, Devil is not enabled. Let's use Drush to enable Devil. For that, we have a specific target in our Docker MK, which is Drush. But there is a problem here. Let me show you. So we make shell and no, doc root, because this is the root of our Drupal installation. And we have Drush 8, I believe. Yeah, Drush 8, which is not compatible with the Drupal 10. So we have to update our Drush. For that, we can install another version of Drush with the Composer. So, Composer, make Composer require Drush. Yep, it's done. And let's check our vendor folder. So here we have Drush, and here we have our binary file. But which Drush is going to be executed from the console? Let's check it. So make shell which Drush. And this is not the Drush we're going to use. So our Drush is located here. Yep. So for example, cache rebuild. So now we have to fix our Docker MK file to use proper Drush. As you can see, this is the place we're gonna work with. So Drupal root is correct, but we have to specify a path to the Drush. So it's Composer root. And it's vendor Drush. Let's check it. Yep, it works. So now we can enable Devil module on our site using make and our updated Docker MK file. So Drush and Devil and make, of course. Successfully enabled. That's what we've been expecting for. So let's check our Composer JSON, and we have one more module I want to enable. And there is one more very useful module, which is admin toolbar. So let's install and enable it as well. And cache rebuild, of course. So, and let's check it out. So as you can see, we have our Devil module enabled, and now we have our really cool drop-down menus. So now, for example, we can access even very deeply hidden configurations with the one click. So for example, configurations, development, performance. And now let's talk a bit about configurations. So for example, Devil has been enabled on our site, so we can check it here. Devil, yep, it's enabled. But where does Drupal stores its configurations? In the database, and we have our database locally, which means whenever we deliver our code base to the production, we won't have any modules enabled. And that's the problem we're gonna be solving in the next section. First of all, I want to explain you how Docker stores its files in the containers. Basically the answer in the question in the containers, and what happens if we remove or reuse our container. We're gonna lose our database. So let's check it. For that I'm gonna stop our project. So make down. Okay, it is stopped, so now we can prune all our containers. So make prune. As you can see, all the containers have been removed. So let's bring our project up back again. Okay, it's up, and let's check what has happened to the site. And as you can see, we've lost our database. So how can we pre-save the data no matter what we do with the container itself? For that, we have to move our data folder outside of a container. Let's do that. So Docker compose MariaDB, and we even have like a preset here. So let's uncomment this and this, and path. And now let's check what do we mount to the rest of the containers. For example, PHP. For PHP, we mount the whole Drupal flow env folder. The same for cron, the same for Nginx. And obviously, we do not need to mount our data folder from the database to the rest of the containers. So we have to move the data folder outside of our Drupal flow env. So it's gonna be this path. 2 dots, which means a level above Drupal flow env folder, and db data. And let's remove this line. We do not need it. So now we have to restart our project. And now, as you can see, our db data folder appears here. So let's get back to the site, and still we have to reinstall it. Okay, it is installed, but as you can see, we're missing our Devil module and we're missing our drop-down menus. So let's put it back. And of course, cache revealed. Let's check it. Drop-down menus, Devil, everything where it's supposed to be. Good. So now let's check if we see the same result after we stop, prune, and bring our project up again. So stopped, removed, and up, back again. So let's check it. Yep, it works as it's supposed to. So now we have fixed the problem with the containers, And now still we have to deliver our configurations somehow. How can we get our configurations outside of database and then import it back? For that, we're going to use Drush. There is a Drush command, which is configuration export, and it exports all the configurations from the database into files. Let's see how it works. So, make Drush CX, which stands for configuration export, just a short version of it. And now it says that our YAML files in our export directory. So we can even check that. Sites, default files, our config directory, and we have all the configuration files, which is pretty cool, but still there are some problems with that folder. The location of the folder is not that convenient to work with, and if we're gonna deliver these configurations, it means that we will have exactly the same configurations as we have locally and as we will have on production, and that's not what we're kind of want to do. Usually locally we have a way more modules enabled, specifically development modules, to make our life easier developing a website. And obviously we do not want those modules be enabled on production. There is a module, it's called configuration split, that allows us import different configurations depending on the environment we are at. So for now, let's install our configuration split module. And alongside with the config split, I usually install environment indicator module, which adds a line to indicate what environment we're currently working with. And of course, we have to enable those modules. And such as we're talking about configurations and settings, let's check our default settings PHP file for our setup. And here we can see our path for our config sync directory. So I'm gonna change that to sync. And there are two reasons for that. First of all, it's just more convenient to see all the configurations just alongside with the all root folders. And the second reason is security, because obviously we're gonna serve our doc.root folder to the internet on production. So moving our sync directory outside of that directory, we are kind of hiding it from the world. So let's create our sync folder. And now let's rerun CX. So now we have all our configuration files here. Let's clean one thing up. Okay, good. And now let's configure Drupal to split our configurations into two, for our local development and for production. Usually there are at least 3 splits for local development, for testing, and for production. But such as this video is just an example, and in the future you can use this example to add more configuration splits, I'm going to show you only these two, because the process is exactly identical for rest of the configurations. I'm going to use web interface to configure my splits, so let's get back to the site, and Development, configuration, split settings. Let's add our first configuration. Let's call it local, no description, folder. It's gonna be sync split local. I'm not gonna use this default active status because I'm gonna override this state with the settings PHP file. Before I start doing something here, let me explain you a few things about modules and how Drupal installs those modules based on configuration. There is a file, it's called core.extensions.yaml, and Drupal lists all the modules that is going to be installed during Drush configuration import command. So basically, whenever we select something in this complete split section in the modules, those modules are going to be excluded from that core.extensions file, and they will be listed in our splitted configuration. And we will get back to this configuration page and this split thing many times in the future. So you'll get it, believe me. So for now, I'm gonna select Devel and Twig Xdebug. So what is going to happen? Those two modules, Devel and Twig Xdebug, are going to be excluded from default configuration file, which is core.extensions, and will be added to our local configuration. So if we won't select those modules in the upcoming configuration splits, those modules won't be enabled in those configurations. You'll see it in no time. Configuration items we'll get here in the upcoming videos, so don't forget to subscribe. And here I guess that's basically it. So save. Warning message says that we do not have those folders, obviously. I'm gonna fix it a bit later. And for now, let me add one more configuration. Let's name it production. Folder. Prod. No default active state. As you remember, I'm going to use that override in settings PHP. And here, as you remember, I won't select Devel and Twig Xdebug because I do not want those modules on production. So basically, this is it. Let's create our folders. Let's enable our local configuration split. For that, we have a helper here. This one. Let's copy it and put it here. So now if we update the page, it says active and the source of that activation is settings.php. Let's run Drush configuration export. As you can see, we have a few new files and core.extension updated. So let's check those files. Let's try to find Devel here, for example. As you can see, there isn't any because those two modules, Devel and Twig Xdebug, have been excluded from this file. And if we check config split, we have those two modules here. And if we check production, that module section is empty. So basically, configuration split merges our active configuration with default configuration files. So locally, whenever we run Drush configuration import, that configuration split module merges our config split and core.extension file, and those two modules will be added to the configuration and will be installed locally, such as in the production configuration, this section is empty. This one will be merged with empty, so those two won't be installed. Let's play around with it. Currently, you know that we have our local configuration split status active. So whenever we do Drush configuration import, it says there are no changes to import because we just exported our configurations. But what will happen if I switch this local to production? Now Drupal thinks that we are on production environment. So Drush uninstalled Devel and Twig Xdebug. And we can even see that on the site. So yep, production is active. And as you can see, there is no Devel, and obviously you won't find Twig Xdebug installed. So let's turn on our local configuration back. Yep, install Devel, install Twig Xdebug, and rest of the configurations. And probably you already have noticed that this configuration in the settings.php is not that universal. And if we put those files into the Git, we won't be able to manipulate those files freely. And this is a problem I will show you how to fix in the next video. So don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned.